Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our 5th lesson of our Bloom and Grow Serge-A-Long. That's right, we've done 4 lessons already, and it's been super fun watching Mary Beck's presentation of her way that she did her quilt on the BERNINA Skill Hub platform. So I hope that you have your login and your credentials and you've been using the BERNINA Skill Hub, because it is totally an awesome learning platform for you that BERNINA is doing direct to you and for you. Of course, it's helping us dealers a lot too. So, pretty easy this month. It's just a bunch of wonky blocks. We're gonna make a flange, we're gonna sew some things together, and it really went together pretty quickly. Now, there are 2 pieces left over in your little bag for your wonky blocks, and those are the borders that are gonna go at the top and the bottom of this strip. Don't worry, we're gonna save those for next month when we do our quilt as you go portion on this. So in the meantime, enjoy this fun process, and I hope you learn a lot from doing this technique.
Okay, welcome to our 5th installment of our Serge-A-Long, featuring the Bloom and Grow Serger quilt by Amanda Murphy and the BERNINA Skill Hub videos put together by our friends at BERNINA of America. Now, I did mention the BERNINA Skill Hub, which is a separate site where you're going to watch the BERNINA of America produced videos where Mary Beck takes you through all of the steps to make this quilt. We put together our own video that kind of shows you how to do this project as a quilt as you go. But I highly recommend that you watch both videos and then kind of determine how you want to make it. For those of you that have been joining us all along this journey, I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you're finding something out of both videos. So the Bloom and Grow Serger quilt, I mentioned we're on our 5th one. This is lesson 5 that we're watching right now, but there are 4 others. And how we tend to do this, because we're doing it quilt as you go, we'll do one of the lessons from the BERNINA Skill Hub, then we quilt it, then we do another lesson, then we quilt it, and now we're on another lesson. So here's the past schedule. If you're a little bit confused watching this, no worries. We have a video that aired in May, and that was our introduction to serger piecing and string piece sections, as well as showing you how to do all of the things on the BERNINA Skill Hub and using them with our video. Then in June, we quilted that section. And in July, we did the stitch and flip and the flat lock embellishment, or I believe BERNINA is calling it the improv blocks. And then last month, we quilted that section. So this month, we're on our lopsided logs, which is section 3 of the BERNINA video portions. So how do you make the most of this Serge-A-Long? Well, we're going to watch the BERNINA Skill Hub Bloom and Grow videos presented by Mary. And then we've broken the project into 12 Serger Quilt As You Go sections that premiere each month on our YouTube channel. Hopefully you're watching it right now, starting Friday, May 3rd at 10 a.m. So you can practice techniques with spare fabric before you cut into your precious stuff, as you know. And our monthly videos will guide you through tips that we find make this easier, but we can always learn from each other, right? And we've designed our Serger quilt, as I mentioned, to be quilt as you go, because it provides a way to help manage the bulk of a large quilt. It makes techniques a little easier for beginner, and it encourages us all to use our equipment for the project, not just our serger, because it's a Serge-A-Long, but we can still use our sewing and embroidery machines, right? So this is our lesson. This is our cute block. This is our wonky log cabin. They're pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. The wonky log cabins, they live on our portion 1 still of our Quilt As You Go segment. We have a section 1, a section 2, and a section 3. So we're just about finishing up section 1. I'm using a BERNINA L860 this month, and I feel like this lesson is best performed with the BERNINA L8 series because they're just so wonderful, quiet, you know, the whole bit. You're going to need the Clearfoot number C27 if you're using the L890, or L27 if you're using the L860 or L850. Then you're also going to need that right seam guide that came with your machine. some of the 60 weight Metler cotton thread that came in your kit. You're going to need 3 spools because we're doing a 3-thread narrow overlock stitch number 4. And the only adjustments to that stitch are going to be adjusting the needle tension to 4.5 to prevent laddering. Mary explains that in the Bernina portion, but I just showed you there some examples of what laddering is. So that's why you want to tighten the needle tension. Some supplies for this lesson is I always kind of keep a stiletto on deck just for kind of assisting in feeding fabric and things like that. We're going to need an iron, little scissors to snip our serger worms, a seam gauge to set your 1/4-inch seam when we sew our blocks together. I love this OmniGrid rotating cutting mat to square up these wonky blocks, and an 8.5-inch square ruler is the perfect size to make the blocks exactly perfect on your OmniGrid ruler. Here are all of the fabrics pulled out. Now, of course, like I said in the intro, you're going to get this presentation deck and you can print this out. You're probably going to want to keep it handy so that you can keep track of all of the fabrics you've cut so far to make sure that you grab everything you need for the lesson. Before we get started, just be warned that you're going to be making 8 blocks total, but 4 have a center white square and 4 have a center black square. You're also going to need to prep the skinny little 1 1/4 pieces that are called the flanges. You're going to press those in half so that they go from 1 1/4 inches wide to about 5/8 of an inch. And I call that pressing it in half hot dog style. And now I started with the dark block, and the layout to sew is in the correct order here. So I print out my blocks like this so I can see how they're going to go together. And I'm going to be adding flounces here and flounces here. So we're going to start with a dark, a light, then a dark on certain ones. And I've marked them on our instructions. But I lay these out here because I know I'm going to start in the center, and I'm working clockwise around to make my log. So I'm going to keep this guy handy next to my sewing area and this order embedded in my head. And I also made one for the lighter square as well. And you can get these obviously from our interactive handout that we give out to you when you sign up for Bloom and Grow. So you start with the dark center, which is fabric E, and that's 3 inches by 3 inches. Then you're going to place a dark flange next to that with fabric N wrong side on top. That's 2 3/4 by 4 inches. Then you're going to stitch that together, press to fabric N. Then you're going to add a light flange with fabric M, which is 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And press to fabric M. Then we're going to skip using flanges for a little bit, and we're going to stitch fabric L right sides together. That's the 2 3/4 by 5.5 inch piece. Then we're going to add fabric K, 2 3/4 by 7 inches, and we're just going to go around clockwise, and we're going to make 4 of these. So I'm making an individual block to show you how I put these together, but when I made all 4 or the rest of the 3, I did chain piece them together to make it a little bit easier. But I also want to point out a couple things. So in those first inner logs that you see, they are going to be the ones that are cut 2 3/4 inch. When you go for your final outer logs, those are cut 3 1/4 inches. So there's just a lot of pieces and a lot of stuff to keep track of, you know. And then you're going to follow a similar method with your light block first, but there are different fabrics in different order for this one. So just make sure you go by these charts. Okay, so it's inevitable. There's lots of things to keep track of that we decided, and I know it's unbelievable, but I made a little boo-boo. And I cut my wonky blocks a little too wonky for the wonky blocks. And one of my flanges, little pieces, is not going to be encapsulated in my seam allowance. Am I going to rip it out? No. Am I going to care? Yes. But am I going to fudge it? Absolutely. So I'm just going to fold that little wee bit under, just a little bit like at an angle, and smush it down with my Laura Star, and you better not tell anybody else that this happened. So then once you get your blocks together, you're going to actually want to sew the blocks together. So make sure that you watch the BERNINA Skill Hub portion to make sure that you're setting up the machine exactly how Mary is setting it up so that you can sew these together accurately. This piece is supposed to measure 32.5 inches long by 16.5 inches wide. And also, there are some darker pieces that we need to reserve for next month because we're going to add those as we quilt and go with our project. But when you sew your blocks together, you're going to alternate dark center, light center, dark center, light center, and do the same at the bottom row, but starting with light center, dark center, light center, dark center, and then sew those rows together. And then if you do it that way, you will be finished with our portion of the lesson. And just reserve the rest of your pieces for next month when we quilt our Wonky log cabin section. And we're going to do it in the hoop. I might even bust out that new BERNINA 990.
So there's a couple more kits left. If you want to tackle this program, just reach out to BERNINAofNaperville.com and search for Bloom and Grow. And until then, enjoy some of our other YouTube videos on our BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/BERNINA of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy over quilting.